we are still on AWS. This time around, we want to look at VPC peering. If you recollect, during our last session, we created two VPCs, right? Number 1 and number 2. Now, these VPCs are like two separate buildings, right? Now, we want to create a connection between both of them such that we can connect as though they were within the same house, okay? So what do we do to make that happen? We use peering connections, okay? So let's go to peering connections and see our options. So we can create peering connection. Let's say we want to call it number 1 and number 2 peering, okay? So number 1 and number 2 peering. You can call it this name, number 1 and number 2 peering, okay? So let's say who is making the request? Let's say number 1 VPC is making a request to number 2. Okay, so let's look at our options. It is possible that the request that is being made, right, is to another account, right? Let's say I'm the CTO, and the AWS account that I'm making a request to, the peer, right, was created by maybe the CEO, right? So he or she will definitely have their account ID, right? So, but in this case, I'm trying to request from an account within my account, right? A VPC within my account. So also, I know that this is the other VPC is in the same region, that's VPC 2. However, it could have been a different region, right? So if that's the case, we need to select the appropriate region and do the right thing, right? So let's go back to this region and select VPC 1. Okay, requester is VPC 1, so we select VPC 2, okay? So this is the IP address. So what we want to do next is to create peering connection. So once we do this, we see has been requested. It is either you accept or reject this peering request using the actions menu. Okay, so I want to come here and accept the request. So once I accept the request, we see peering has been established. Now, it tells us that to send and receive traffic across VPC peering connection, you must add a route to the paired VPC in one or more of your VPC route tables. Okay, so it's giving us the direction, right? What we should do, that we should modify our route tables to accommodate this peering, right? So the peering has been established quite all right, but is that all we need to do? Look at the settings. It shows disabled at the moment. Can you see that? Disabled, right? So there's still something we need to do. Remember our access cards from the last illustration we looked at. So the access card is similar to the route table, right? It will give access, right? It will grant access, allow traffic. So once we modify route table, so you can see the route tables we have. We have the public for number 1, we have public for number 2, right? We have private for number 1, have private for number 2. So what do we want to do now? We want to come to each of these route tables, right? This number 2, for example, what do you want to do with number 2? You want to edit routes, right? So number 2, let's look for number 1. We are trying to add the route for number 1 to number 2, okay? So let's go to the VPC. Let's see the VPCs we have. So this is number 2. So for number 1, this is the IPv4 CIDR. So I copy this. This is what I need to copy. Let me copy this. Copy this, copy. So I come here. I want to paste that here, right? So I'm trying to update this. So I want to search for peering connection. So this is the peering connection that we just created, right? So once I do this, I want to save. You see, I've added this, right? This is number 2 route table, right? Public, right? So I've added this IPv4 CIDR for VPC1, okay? So I've done that for public, so I want to do the same for private. So let me look for the number 2 RTB route table for private, okay? So I come here as well. I go to the routes. This is the route. I want to edit route and add a route, okay? So I put the IP CIDR, IPv4 CIDR for VPC1. I want to add it to VPC2. So I search for peering connection. So this is the peering connection we just created. I save this as well, right? So once I do this, what else am I supposed to do? So I've taken care of the number 2 route tables. So I'll look for number 1 route tables. So this is the public, right? Let me check this out. So I want to go to the routes and edit routes. So I want to add the route. The route I want to add now is the route for number 2, okay? So I copy the IPv4 CIDR. So I come in here, I paste it, right? So how do you know that you are doing it right? You can see this is different from this. If it is the same, it won't work because it's going to see it as a conflict, right? So if it's the same, it won't work. So for you to have a successful peering, the IPv4 CIDR, right? That's the string should be different, right? From VPC1 and VPC2, okay? So now you can see they are different. So we can be sure we are going to be successful with that exercise. So peering connection, so it's the same peering, right? So I want to save. So go for the last one. So public has been taken care of for number 1. So let's look for number 1 private as well and do something about it. So we come here, edit routes, want to add a route. So the route for that we are adding is this. So we come here and say peering connection. We click on this and we save. Okay, so we can see what we've done here is to go to each of the route tables, right? For number 2, we looked at the public and the private, and we copied the IPv4 CIDR, right, for 1, and we pasted it under 2. And we also did the same thing. We went to the route table 1, private and public, and copied the IPv4 CIDR for 1 and put there, so that there'll be a connection, right, between the 2 VPCs, right? So that way we complete the peering connection. So apart from creating the peering connection, we still needed to go an extra step by modifying the routing tables, right? Even after creating the peering connections, we saw the notification up there that prompted us to go modify the routing tables. So now let's go back to the peering connections and see something. So when you click on this, let's see what we see. So let's see what we have here. We have actions. Let's see what's possible. We can delete peering connection if we want. We can edit settings. We can edit classic link settings. So the major thing we need to do, we've done, and you can see it shows that it's active. So that's all on peering connections. So let's see. Okay, we have the VPCs available, and we have the peering connections active. Okay. Okay, so that's fine. Okay. Requesters, acceptors, okay. So everything is in order. So that's about all. See you in another session.